Recruiting calendar recently changed up, and Mike Norvell explained to me what he likes about that. But he also told me that there was another change that's been proposed that he did not think was a good idea. We're going to look at both of those and talk about what would help Florida State and why he's not a fan at all of what else has been proposed. For those of you who don't know, the recruiting calendar shifted a couple of weeks early, and the early signing day in December is now no longer into the mid to late part of that month. It's the first week of the month on December 4th. Again, I saw Mike Norvell a couple of weeks ago, and I've brought to you guys a couple of videos of things we talked about and have played some clips and tried to give my perspective of why he said what he said and how that impacts us this year and going forward. But he shared his thoughts on that, and here's what he had to say.
Adjust to whatever you're told to do, but is there anything you'd like to see change with the recruiting calendar? And I know there's been different proposals that have come up, but is there anything that would help you?
No, I mean, I think I like what's been done here in December. I think it's being able to move the signing day up. You do lose those official visit weekends in December, but with as many times as kids are getting on campus, it does put a bigger emphasis in the summer of time. But also you still have your in season official visits, which I think some kids really like to see that, see the atmosphere, see the experience, and
So I'll say this. I think this is probably a help for Florida State. And before you get on me or go super negative or jump down in the comments, I'm going to be and maybe bring this back around positive, but let's be very honest with ourselves. The weeks from the beginning of December until signing day for the last few years have not gone super, super well for Florida State. I'm not down on FSU. I'm not down on Mike Norvell's recruiting. I'm not down on any of that, but they haven't had a ton of success on signing day or the weeks leading up to signing day. It feels like the positive momentum that they've had to finish the last 3 years, 2021, where they finished the year 5-3, had some success late in that season, 2022, where they won 10 games, finished on a 6-game winning streak, and then 2023, where they were 13-0, had literally won every game they played. It seems like they really didn't capitalize on that through those last couple weeks before signing day. And so maybe backing that up and getting that recruiting momentum to truly be instantaneous with the end of the football season could be big for the Noles. And Norvell admitted liking this as well. Now, I'm not going to put words in his mouth or tell you that I think he is excited about it because they've kind of lost momentum there in December the last few years. But Mike Norvell's a smart man. He certainly understands how things have gone in December for him when it comes to recruiting, and maybe backing that up closer to that UF game is a welcome change, especially this year where you've got UF to end the season just 4 days before that early signing day, a rocking Doak Campbell Stadium, a potential night game against the Gators, a team that you are absolutely going head-to-head with for so many different guys. We're going to cover that in a later video, so stay tuned. Maybe it comes out on Sunday, but check that out and make sure you're subscribed and don't miss it. But that might work out really well for the Noles to have signing days just a few days after that big game. You also just have less time to lose traction with kids. Florida State had a lot of distractions, some of those because of the snub, some of those because they were in the ACC championship, some of those for very valid reasons. But Florida State had things to accomplish in December, whereas your rivals really didn't. One of them was playing Rutgers in a lawnmower bowl, and the other wasn't even in a bowl. And so you just got less time to lose that traction. It's a very busy time. You talk about the coaches going on the road, and Alex Atkins not even realizing that we got snubbed until he landed in California because of how quickly he had to get on the road the next day after the ACC championship. I think it's better for the coaches. I think it's better for their calendar, and it could help Florida State in the long run as well. They've had some challenges and some issues in December. We can call a spade, and maybe this counteracts that just a little bit. Norvell talked about the bigger emphasis on the summer and fall relationships where Florida State has done very, very well. Could this, backing it up, help the Seminoles some? Now, I don't know, right? We'll see. Proof will be in the pudding. If they were to lose 2 or 3 guys on signing day this year that's on December 4th, then I think you just have to chuck that up or sum it up to say, hey, man, they just need some help in closing. But if they're able to hold on to some guys, was it the staff adjusting, or did the earlier signing day help you? Because you got that done and out of the way. However, there is something he talks about not liking. I'll talk about that, and I'll play that clip for you in just a moment. But first, let me give some love to my friend over at Got Spears. John over there at Got Spears has the best deal that I've ever seen him do. It's 2 6-foot spears for $200. That's a total savings of nearly $150. You can do the 2 6-foot spears with torches right now for $300. That is a savings of $195. Next Friday on June 14th, a week from today, he will be set up at 2847 West Caps Highway. That's in Monticello, which is just 20 minutes out of Tallahassee on the Appalachian Parkway from the Capitol. The area called Wakana, with Father's Day spears set up. Those are regular 6-foot spears, and they'll be $100 that day. You guys can text him. I'll put his number in the comments, but if you need a last-second Father's Day gift, he will be set up. I'll put all the info down in the description. Make sure that you go check out John over at gotspears.com. You can get him in person if you're going to be up there. All right, so let's talk about what Mike Norvell did not like, does not want to see happen to college football. This rapidly changing landscape that we've got, what does he not want to happen? Listen to that clip.
Talk of going to another signing day. I'm not as big on the June signing date. Just, I think there's just a lot of different dynamics that can tie into that. But we'll see where it goes. But I actually do like what was done, because you give the teams, you give the high school players, by having a signing day before the portal season opens, or the session opens. They have an opportunity to sign, and you could try to fill needs through the high school ranks of what you desire. And then, obviously if there's some change in your own roster, you could work to replace that when the portal opens. And so I like that approach. Well, I'm going to kind of hit on why I also like the December signing date, is that, this is a developmental game. And, you see so many players that, have great senior years that, and then sometimes you see players that get highly recruited, early in their career that, kind of plateau a little bit, in their last year for whatever reason. And, I think that the importance of that senior year is big. And I like that. I like still having the opportunity, because wherever the signing day is, it's going to be pushed forward. That's what's, I think you've seen that, throughout the years, that wherever that is, there's going to be a majority of your class will probably sign on that first signing day. But I do like having that senior year as a kind of a metric of a part of where somebody's going. And so
I think Mike Norvell's practicality here, and I'll talk about why I think he doesn't like the June idea of signing day. You might even be able to guess some of the reasons. It might not even be that hard to think through here in today's college football landscape. But the one thing that I think is so practical, and the NCAA almost gets nothing right, but I think they got this right. Moving the signing day window before the portal is in full swing is one of the best moves the NCAA has ever made, like, in their history. And I hate to give the NCAA credit for anything. In fact, I've been celebrating the fact that the EA Sports college football video game isn't named NCAA 14. Like, I'm thankful that they're not even part of that. But I will say the NCAA got this right. Putting the signing day, the early signing day, which is where most guys sign, right? Like 80% of guys, putting that before the portal is brilliant. And you went into portal season and trying to contact kids and all this stuff, having a pretty good idea of what your class was going to be, but there are always last-minute flips. There are always last-second decommitments. There are always guys that push their thing. They're signing back to February. There's always those situations. And so getting that done, having the signing day, the class locked in with today's, again, landscape, having that done before the portal is brilliant. And Norvell mentioned that, right? You fill your needs through high school, and then you can go to the portal after, a couple of weeks after, if you've missed on some things, or you had a last second decommitment or flip. Florida State had a couple of them, right? You missed on a kid that you weren't able to get. If you knew about that 2 weeks earlier, how does that change your portal approach? How does that change who you're reaching out to? I think that's brilliant. Now, why does Mike Norvell not want the June signing day? I don't, and the NCAA will probably enact this. That's no inside information. That is 100% me speculating on the fact that the NCAA cannot do anything right. And so they'll probably move the signing day to way too early and get it wrong. Again, I'm not reporting that I've heard that. I'm not don't run to the message, well, TJ said that this was going to happen. I'm just telling you, if you follow the NCAA for long enough, you understand that they're idiots and they're probably going to mess this up. But why does Mike Norvell not like this? We already have a cluster on our hands with the way that NIL and NLIs and signing day and kids being let out of their NILs, and On3 had to create a brand new metric for it called short-term signees. Kids that never make it to campus, kids that transfer before ever stepping foot on your college campus, kids that step foot on your college campus and then transfer after the first semester and leave to go elsewhere after playing just the spring with you, and then they're at another college. You get them for the spring. You get to invest in them. You get to pay for them to be on your campus for however long. You get to feed them. You get to train them. You get to put them through strength, and then they go somewhere else. How much work? And it's already bad. It's already a cluster. You look at the kid that we targeted, Zandamela, going from USC, then going to Florida after just a semester. You look at the Caden Proctor crap. You look at all of this, and how much worse does that get with these 17, 18-year-old kids? How much worse does that get with kids who have signed their letter of intent in June? They won't even be short-term signees because they'll be asking to get out of their NLIs. Now, I'm not saying every kid. I think 90% of kids are likely going to stay committed just like they do now. But the mess that you're already seeing in December and January is only going to get worse in June when you've got 6, 7, 8 months of legal tampering being allowed to help. This doesn't help coaches at all. Tampering rules don't even exist right now. NIL penalties are not enforceable, but you'd literally have tampering with signed prospects. You'd have months and months and months of collectives and coaches and staffs and bagmen and handlers and parents and uncles and whoever badgering these kids to get them to ask out of their NLIs for NIL, for money. And it would happen. It's already happening when there's only a month in between. Just wait until there's 7 months in between a kid stepping on a college campus. I think that's a logistical nightmare. I think it's terrible for the game. The game is already a cluster in so many ways, and it would get even worse. The positive side of it, the not so much TJ, is yelling up at the clouds and saying, get off my lawn. The positive side of it, and the thing that Mike Norvell brought up, was how big the senior season is to the recruiting process. How much the senior season factors in to what a staff is looking for. We had Charles Power on from On3, the guy that is head of all the rankings. And he told us fans, I don't think staffs, I spoke with somebody off record, a former coach, who I asked about, how much do staffs care about the rankings? And he said, we don't care unless it's like a major outlier. We want to make sure that we're not like, we have this kid as 5th best on our board and everybody else has him as a 3-star. Like, why are we so, what are they missing? What are we missing? But he's like, we don't care. But we had Charles Power on, and I know fans get up in arms about rankings, and this service had us higher, had us lower. They dropped our guys. They did this. Charles Power told us on this channel, on the show last July maybe, He said the number one biggest factor in a kid's ranking is his senior season. It's not 7-on-7. It's not his height, weight, all those things. It is the way he plays his senior season. And that makes a lot of sense. That's what Mike Norvell's saying too. The senior season is so detrimental to our recruiting process. There are a lot of guys that enter their senior season as a 5-star and they end up as a 5-star. But there are a lot of guys that make huge jumps. LJ McCray was one of those guys. Luke Kromenhoek was a guy that made a huge jump. We had guys fall down. We had others that jumped way, way up. We won't say his name, but the defensive back that we got in July last year that shot way, way up, he ended up signing with Alabama. Those things happen. He was a 3-star when we took him. I really wanted Morgan too, so I'll say his name. It's all right. But I think Norvell understands that too. And signing somebody in June who goes out in his senior season and lays an absolute dud and skips class and doesn't want, you're locked in at that point. And I think Norvell's right. Moving that to June would be a nightmare for college coaches, for the sport in general. I think it'd be bad for the kids. I think it'd be bad for the kids. You've got kids, and they would be let out of their NLIs if this happened. But you've got kids that would be signing with coaches in June. What if you sign with the University of Florida in June right now? And Napier's gone by October, November? That's not good for the kid. Now, again, they'd be let out of their NLIs, but they wouldn't have been what are their options at that point, right? They've got 3 weeks to get re-recruited, and other programs have already filled needs, and so they're scrambling to find a spot because their coach that they just committed to got fired. I think that's a rough situation. It's already bad enough, but at least when the kid isn't signed, he's still being recruited for that whole time, right? You can be committed to a program and still being recruited, and so you have some of those other relationships if your coach gets fired. But I think it's a nightmare for the programs. It's a nightmare for the sport. It's a nightmare for the players. And so all that said, the NCAA will probably install it in June. Since it doesn't make any sense at all, that's probably what they'll go with. I would love to hear what you think about this. Thoughts on Norvell and the signing day moving back just a couple of weeks to early December. Thoughts on why it's not a good idea for June, why it is a good idea for June. If you think it's a good idea for June, I'm happy to have those conversations down in the comments. I'm happy to talk about it. I may not agree, but I'd love to hear your side and your take on it. Now, one of the other things I asked Mike Norvell was about a player that he's super, super excited about. We chatted about Jalen Lucas. And if you didn't see that video, you need to click the screen right now so you can go check it out.